Step up to craft beer. Taino Light Lager has a crisp, refreshing Caribbean-style flavor. Boricua Craft Ale, full-bodied flavor for the true beer drinker. Stop drinking beer water. Taino Craft Light Lager and Boricua Strong Craft Ale. Feel the rhythm and come up to craft beer.
Thank you. Thank you. No, we keep our promise. And now that I am your president, America will expose the crimes of the Castro regime and stand with the Cuban people in their struggle for freedom. Because we know it is best for America to have freedom in our hemisphere, whether in Cuba or Venezuela, and to have a future where the people of each country can live out their own dreams. For nearly 6 decades, the Cuban people have suffered under communist domination. To this day, Cuba is ruled by the same people who killed tens of thousands of their own citizens, who sought to spread their repressive and failed ideology throughout our hemisphere, and who once tried to host enemy nuclear weapons 90 miles from our shores. The Castro regime has shipped arms to North Korea and fueled chaos in Venezuela. While imprisoning innocents, it has harbored cop killers, hijackers, and terrorists. It has supported human trafficking, forced labor, and exploitation all around the globe. This is the simple truth of the Castro regime. My administration will not hide from it, excuse it, or glamorize it. And we will never, ever be blind to it. We know what's going on, and we remember what happened.
Diamond Reynolds capturing the moments after her boyfriend was shot by a Minnesota police officer during a traffic stop.
We got pulled over for a busted tail light in the back. And the police, he's covered. He killed my friend.
Philandro Castillo's white shirt soaked in blood and in distress. They were pulled over allegedly for a broken tail light around 9 p.m. outside of St. Paul.
He's licensed to carry. He was trying to get out his ID and his wallet.
Reynolds live streaming video from inside the car with her 4-year-old daughter in the back seat.
He let the officer know that he had a firearm and he was reaching for his wallet, and the officer just shot him in his arm.
I want to also give my thanks to John Choi and the prosecutor's office. They did a great job in the representation of the facts in this manner in which my son was murdered. And I will continue to say murdered, because where in this planet do you tell the truth and you be honest and you still be murdered by the police of Minnesota while you have your seatbelt on and you're in a company with a woman and a child? My son would never jeopardize anyone else's life by trying to pull a gun on an officer and the gun was not fire ready. These are some of the facts that came out in the trial, and I am so very, 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 very disappointed in the system here in the state of Minnesota, because nowhere in the world do you die from being honest and telling the truth. Now, these are some things that you need to know and recognize. There has always been a systemic problem in the state of Minnesota, and me thinking with my common sense that we would get justice in this case, but nevertheless, it never seems to fail us. The system continues to fail black people, and they will continue to fail you all. Like I said, because this happened with Orlando, when they get done with us, they're coming from you, for you, and all your interracial children. Y'all are next, and you'll be standing up here fighting for justice just as well as I am.
This past Sunday, 23% of Puerto Rico electorate made their voice heard, and 97% voted for statehood as the option. Puerto Rico has been under colonial status for over 500 years, if you include what's happened with Spain. This group you see before you today has come together not as Democrats or as Republicans, but as American citizens of Puerto Rican descent, with the purpose of calling both Congress and President Trump to act on behalf of the 3.5 million American citizens on the island of Puerto Rico and the 5 million that live in the U.S. Florida, however, now stands alone with the largest number of Puerto Ricans in our nation. We personally want to thank Congressman Darren Soto, Congresswoman Stephanie Murphy, Congressman Jose Serrano, Congressman Steny Hoyer, Congressman Carlos Corbillo, Representative Jennifer Gonzalez, and Congressman Don Young as the first ones who have already come out to support the vote that happened this past Sunday. Over the past several days, we've seen the opposition boycott the election process, hurl insults, and try to discredit this vote. Today, the silent majority has awoken, and we're requesting that the DOJ, first off, validate the outcome of this vote, that Congress bring it to a vote, and that President Trump help the Puerto Rican American patriots reach their American dream. And I'll say this, back in 2016, and I'm going to read this statement, and even though we're not here talking about Republican Democrats, because here in this room, as you can see, both sides are represented, but the Republican Party has done something that U.S. politicians have a lot of trouble doing. They've honestly come out in favor of statehood for Puerto Rico, and in the 2016 Republican platform, these words were included in that platform. We support the right of American citizens of Puerto Rico to be admitted to the Union as a fully sovereign state. We also recognize the historical significance of the local referendum in 2012, in which 54% voted to end the current relationship of Puerto Rico as a territory, and 61% chose statehood as options for national sovereignty. So this is really important because we're sure going to hear in the media, these folks don't want us or they don't want to represent us, but this has been a historic vote, not just in Puerto Rico, but even here. Seeing congressmen like Darren Soto, Stephanie Murphy, we're still waiting on Val Demings to see where she stands here locally. We have seen all across the country a movement now of folks who have come out and said this is the time for it, and we are now asking for a show of solidarity, and not just that, but also a plan of action. Beginning with our first step, a simple step, beginning by calling Speaker Paul Ryan, calling his number, 202-225-3031, a 30-second phone call to the Speaker of the House and saying, allow the vote to take place on the floor of the Congress. We have three other congressmen that I'm concerned about. Congressman Labrador of Idaho, Congressman Gutierrez of Chicago, and Congresswoman Velasquez of New York. We have yet to hear where they stand on this vote, and it's very important. We have their phone numbers as well. Congressman Labrador, 202-225-6611. Congressman Gutierrez, 202-225-8203. And Congresswoman Velasquez, 202-225-2361. Now you're saying, why are we giving these numbers out? Because it's important that we start calling, that we start putting this act into motion and letting them know that the over 1 million Puerto Ricans in the state of Florida coming in solidarity with the 3.5 million and the 97% that did vote. Okay, this is a democracy. I know in Florida, we have a tendency to see numbers where 10%, 15%, or 20% go out and vote. The vote on Puerto Rico of 23% is pretty loud. It's pretty strong, saying to us on a special election that it is time for the United States, for this Congress, to act. So here next to me, I'm going to introduce a few people. We're going to ask them to speak as well. We're going to begin with the host, Tony Suarez. Okay. Thank you for allowing us to be here. And he's going to say a few words, and then I'm going to introduce a few other people that are here with us today.
Well, first I'd like to thank the Senator and Representative for being here. I am extremely pleased to know that this is considered a bipartisan effort. You know, for the longest of time, the status of Puerto Rico has been divided between Republicans and Democrats. And what Peter did not mention is we still have to reach out to Alex Webster and Bill Posey, our local congressmen, and they have to take a position. This is well beyond the question of just partisanship. This is about United States of America, we, all of us who are citizens here, keeping a people without the full benefits of American democracy. This is not acceptable. As president of the Puerto Rican Bar Association, we have been battling now for several years on the question, on the legal issue, whether the status of Puerto Rico is constitutional. The United States Supreme Court has already spoken last year in 2 decisive cases, indicating that Puerto Rico is totally without sovereignty of its own, that it is a creature of the Congress, and even the Constitution is not applied on Puerto Rico like it will be applied in the States. So therefore, Puerto Rico is an anachronism. It is a part of American policy back in the 1898 of a manifest destiny, and when the rest of the world was going colonizing the world, Puerto Rico is still a vestige of that time. I am so glad to see that we stand together on this issue. This is an important issue for Americans and of course for Puerto Ricans. And so I implore all of you to get involved. It is going to be our task to continue to do this. I wanted to give a little plug for the Puerto Rican Bar. Next year we're planning, I've spoken to Representative Darren Soto, and we're going to take moot court competition, which we've had last several years, to Washington, D.C., and the issue is going to be whether or not the United States of America is violating its international treaties, which it had promised the world that it would not have Puerto Rico or anybody else in condition of being without sovereignty. And now that the United States Supreme Court has clarified that Puerto Rico doesn't have sovereignty, whether or not, as a result of that, the United States is maintaining its actual international treaties and obligations. So I think it's going to be an interesting topic. I hope that it would be something that we make a difference what we do. And so once again, I guess I would turn over to Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure being here this morning. I just want to say that this issue has been going for not a day and not last week. We've been attending many meetings in New York as well as here in Central Florida. But my concern is that 23% of the voters who voted in favor of this has a question mark. Puerto Rico has been known to have a 90% voting turnout. And I feel sad that some people didn't come out to vote up or down on this issue, because your vote is your voice.
Yes, sir.
You know, and to me, if you don't let people know how you feel, how are they, Congress people or anybody or the president, anybody react to your concern? My take on this is we still have an influx of people coming to Florida, Central Florida here, because of the conditions in Puerto Rico. Their families, their children, their schools are closing in Puerto Rico. This means these kids are going to be coming here. We need housing. We need open up our schools for more kids coming into our schools. So I realize that this vote on Sunday it's a step in the direction where something has to be done, and I believe that, you know, the state of Florida has 27% of congressional representatives. So it's not just Democrats, it's Republicans as well as to where they stand on this issue. Are they supporting us because we are the lifeline to those who are coming from the island over here seeking help? I hope that we all can get together and get support. We as representatives of the state of Florida, we ask and we implore that our colleagues on the other side support us and get on the board with us to help Puerto Rico. And I thank you again, Peter, for having this.
Thank you. Next to him is Representative John Cortez.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I just want to say that everybody forgets that Puerto Rico is part of the United States. And it always, that always comes up and it always irks me. Puerto Rico is part of the United States. If we turn into a state, we can get rid of that bad law with the boats, with the ports, where everything just has to come from one place. That'll help with us with the economy. We need to get rid of that Medicaid block grant. That's when the money's gone, goodbye medical. Far as our financial woes, we got to do something with that, and this will help us out. And corruption. This will get rid of corruption. Right now we have the Promesa Act. People are getting $4.25 if you're 25 and under coming here, and everybody's coming here because we got $8.10 an hour, but it's better than $4.25. So these kids that come out of college, that are graduated, that are educated, but who's going to live off of $4.25 with a family? And they just came out of college, and they're not going to get a job. So they come here and they come to other states, Chicago, Kansas, wherever they get a job. Puerto Ricans adapt to anywhere they go because they're American citizens and they want to work. Everybody's got a bad stereotype that Puerto Ricans live in a basement and all this baloney. And I'm tired of hearing this. We're in the 20th century now, 21st century, and we should be thinking about Puerto Ricans as regular human beings and citizens of the United States. And we need to focus on getting us to be a state, just like Hawaii, so we can get better. This is all about getting better. It doesn't matter what political party you are. This is a thing for being a human being, on a human being standpoint of getting things done. And we all want to work together, and Puerto Ricans want to work together. We're in the military, so why can't we get this right? And we want the right to vote for our president. We don't have that right in Puerto Rico to vote for our president. Everybody wants to vote for the president. And hopefully everybody gets off their derriere, gets out there and makes these phone calls, makes petitions, or we go walking on Washington, D.C. and say, hey, we want this vote. So everybody, please, don't criticize. Get out there, do a movement, and let's get out there and do this. I will be glad to be one of the participants in going to Washington with you, and I am here to get this word across. We need to be a state. We need to help our citizens in Puerto Rico and here. Thank you.
We also have, I invited Gustavo Torres, who's a CPA, but he's also a part of the Hispanic Chamber out in Osceola County. And I wanted to share a few words because the economic impact too that what Puerto Rico can bring, because everybody talks about the debt and everything that's happening, but also what the future could look like. And I'd like for Gustavo to spend a few minutes and just share that information, please.
Thank you, Peter, for this opportunity. I'm a certified public accountant with license in Puerto Rico and Florida. I moved to Florida in the last 7 years. It was a great experience. But most of my life, since I born until I moved here, I live in Puerto Rico. I can tell you that how I see the changes in Puerto Rico, and specifically in the economy part. Not only because I live there every day, but because I'm also a CPA and I see the economic situation. I see how the government tax law change all the time, being more aggressive toward the limited and small economy that we have. Right now I still have clients. I know all the effort they are putting there in Puerto Rico to try to stay alive. The real thing is that when the United States arrived to Puerto Rico, the United States enacted Section 931, which gives some tax exemption to the companies operating in Puerto Rico on their profits. After the Section 931, then came the Section 936 of 1975 that also give another tax exemption on the operation of those companies until 2005 that the law ended, and we have 10 years without any economic development. Right now we have a fiscal board that was not elected by the people of Puerto Rico and have authority over the tax dollar of Puerto Rico. We have 3.5 million citizens in Puerto Rico that doesn't have an authority to talk about what is happening there. They don't have representation in the Congress, they cannot vote for the president, and they don't have tools, they don't have way to develop an economy there. The fiscal board is not going to help improve the economy of Puerto Rico. They are going to help maybe work on the fiscal part, but they will not be able to improve the economic part of Puerto Rico. We need to join the United States in order to work together with the federal government to develop the economy in Puerto Rico. There are smart people there, smart professionals that can do a lot for this nation, and working together as a state, a sovereign state with the United States, is going to be a great opportunity to put Puerto Rico on black number and make the economic development possible. So this is to share. Thank you.
And last but not least, we have the representative of PRAFA, the Puerto Rican Federal Affairs, Luis. He's going to also share a few words with us this morning.
Thank you. Oh, good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you, Peter. This is a civil movement. Let me begin with that. And also, let me begin with saying to Representative Darren Soto and Stephanie Murphy, my sincere thanks for all that you are doing. In my personal side, you now have a new friend in me. June 11 was a historical day for Puerto Rico. We might end colonialism for 500 years that we've been in. Since 1898, Puerto Rico has been a U.S. colony. Now the people of Puerto Rico have decided, overwhelmingly, 98% of the people have decided, 98% of the vote have decided that Puerto Rico is gonna have equal right, equal responsibility with the United States. Some folks out there are talking about the low numbers, but let me remind them that in 1940, Hawaii, only 35% of the people actually voted for statehood. 1946, Alaska, 21%. So historically, the plebiscite votes are getting lower and lower and lower. It's been demonstrated by the story and now happening again in Puerto Rico. Today the governor flew to Washington, D.C. to start conversation with Congress. They're going to enact 5 representatives and 2 senators from Puerto Rico, what we are calling Plan Tennessee, to go there and to lobby for statehood for Puerto Rico. This is about equal right, equal responsibility for the people. This is not about political parties. This is, as you can see here, you have everybody represented here. And I'm glad to see Victor Torres and Mr. Cortez here. I'm so glad that the community in Central Florida are getting united and we are getting the message out. I'm calling all the 27 congressmen and congresswomen from Florida. We are more than 1.2 million Puerto Rico living in Florida now. We want to know how everybody else feels about the results. So we're calling everybody else, and we're going to send letters to each and every one, and including Marco Rubio and Senator Bill Nelson, to know where they stand on the issue. So thank you again, Peter, for having me, and thank you, the press, for being here. So thank you so much.
What Louis just finished saying, I'm going to finish with that and then open for any questions you might have. We don't want to take too much of your time. But I do have some stats he was just mentioning. Alaska, 1946, 16,000 people voted to be a state in Alaska. In Arizona, back in 1911, 15,000 people voted to be a state.
7%, wasn't it?
7%.
Correct.
In Puerto Rico on Sunday, 500,000 people voted and said, we want to be a state. So this all falls back on, if we're going to play with numbers, there are plenty of numbers that you can play and dictate and look at back and forth. But the fact is, the 3 options on Sunday were on the table. And I hate to use this phrase, maybe some people get offended or not, but Puerto Rico threw the Trump card. And the Trump card is on the table. It's saying, now we want Congress to act. Now we need Congress to act. This is a copy of the actual ballot. And if you look on this ballot, you'll see that it had statehood, independence, and it had the actual current status that it's in. So all 3 were there. So every single one, according to the Department of Justice, as they requested, were on this ballot. if they didn't vote, it's not because their point wasn't on here. They didn't vote because they weren't interested. And as Victor Torres says, or Senator Torres said earlier, that's really scary to think. But this is what we're talking about. This is what they had the opportunity to put an X on one of these spots and decide. And 97% of the Puerto Rican people voted for statehood, those who voted and participated. So we don't want to take any more of your time today. We want to be able to answer any questions you might have, and we're here for that. So go ahead, Terry.
How will you persuade the Republican-led Congress to go ahead and approve statehood for Puerto Rico?
Sure, and as I read earlier, of course the governors of Puerto Rico is in Washington now, and I'm sure there'll be a strong lobbying. But as I read earlier, the statement that was in the 2016 Republican platform says clearly that we support the right of American citizens of Puerto Rico to be admitted to the Union as a fully sovereign state. This is all we needed to know.
And Reagan stood for that position, Bush 1 and Bush 2, all publicly stood for that position.
Right, and so that's what we have to stand for, something that's in black and white, not something that we're creating or something that the governor of Puerto Rico decided to say. This came out clearly in the platform in 2016. It was already pre-existing on the Republican platform, but now it became even clearer that they want the sovereignty for Puerto Rico if that's what the people asked for.
Yes, I wasn't clear on how becoming a state will clear up Puerto Rico's financial crisis.
The first thing is what we have in the past. Puerto Rico depended entirely on special laws that give some tax exemption to the island. They let American company go in there without with tax exemption, and they created a lot of jobs. This has been cut immediately after 2005, so this section is completely gone. Puerto Rico has struggled to try to develop a new economy in an island with limited power. We are part of the most powerful nation in the world with a lot of economy, with a very strong economy, but we cannot have a state where we can go there to the federal government with our congressman and going directly to the president to act to develop the economy of Puerto Rico. A specific question, I think that there is a lot to do, so I cannot tell you a specific plan of how to do it, but I can guarantee you that if we have the access of the statehood, having congressmen there, we will be able to sit and develop a good economy, a very strong economy plan for Puerto Rico. And I got to tell you, there are great professionals there. The Puerto Ricans study a lot. Most of the Puerto Ricans have master's degrees. They are very well-educated people, and we will be able to have a very strong contribution to the nation. What we need is to be part of the nation to be able to develop a new, stronger economy for Puerto Rico.
One thing I'll say before we leave, because I know it's getting late, but I will say this. Yesterday I was privileged to do a blog, and got a lot of comments, and I knew that they were going to come positively and negatively. For those of you who are questioning what contribution Puerto Rico has done, I have just a quick answer for you. Back when they offered citizenship to the Puerto Ricans, it didn't come free. In fact, a few days after they offered citizenship, all of a sudden the Selected Service showed up and said, now that you're an American citizen and we're at war, you're mandatorily going to be going to war. So for Attorney Suarez, who served our country, and many others here who have served our country, Marines and Army, and they, we over 40,000 soldiers that came out of Puerto Rico to serve this country. Over 1,300 who gave their lives, besides the Buccaneers and other organizations. So to say that we're just looking for a handout is very offensive. It's very offensive to me as an American and from Puerto Rican descent to see the fact that our ancestors gave a lot to this country. So we're not asking for a handout, and let's get this other thing on the table, because this is one of those soapbox things of that we want to be bailed out. Puerto Rico has never used the word bailout. Let's get that clear.
Step up to craft beer. Taino Light Lager has a crisp, refreshing Caribbean-style flavor. Boricua Craft Ale, full-bodied flavor for the true beer drinker. Stop drinking beer water. Taino Craft Light Lager and Boricua Strong Craft Ale. Feel the rhythm and come up to craft beer.